Welcome, everybody. You are watching School Psyched podcast. Really happy to be here tonight. Going to be a fun conversation. I hope that everybody's year is winding down, that the referrals have maybe slowed down a little bit. I'll say that I thought I was in the clear, and then like 3 parent requests popped up. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I'll have a little bit of summer work. We'll see how that goes. I'm a 12-month employee that I've shared before, though, so it's a little bit different and not as concerning as some of you who want to head off into the sunset, but I hope that things are going good. But my name is Rachel. I'm a school psychologist in Maryland. I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca, who's going to talk about how you can participate if you're watching live tonight. Rebecca.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I hope that you are able to join us either in exact real time or live at some point during the conversation this evening. And if you are, your comments when you log into the YouTube channel will sync up right alongside our chat. And so please feel free whenever you join us tonight to comment alongside the video that you're watching, because I will look for notifications and we will all be able to see the chat and address any questions, and also just learn from you, from your experiences and your thoughts and the connections that you're making as we have this conversation. If you're watching after the live broadcast, that's wonderful too. You can still comment alongside the video. And if you're listening on audio only, as many of our listeners do, please also come back to social media, either on our Facebook pages, School Psych podcast page, School Psych Your School Psychologist, or on X, if you're still hanging in there on Twitter. You can comment using the hashtag Psych Podcast, and we can continue the conversation over time. We always love to hear from you. Sometimes it does take us a minute if you comment a long time after the broadcast to get back to you, but we always do check, and we look for comments, and we enjoy the conversation. So we're looking forward to hearing from all of you. And of course, we're looking forward to speaking with our incredible guest. We're always a little extra happy to have such we always have honorable guests, but to have NASP president on is really exciting. And so I'm going to hand it over now to Eric, who's going to introduce himself and our wonderful guest.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. And that was just nice to see that comment from Nick, who's been following us for years as an undergrad before he was even into a school psych graduate program. And he's getting ready 1 semester away from graduating. Nick, we're proud of you and always appreciate that you've been such a great audience member and so engaged in the field already. So, we're excited to have Dr. Andrea Clyne here with us this evening. And she has been a school psychologist for over 30 years and has been involved at her state level in Colorado and involved at the national level as not only as NASP president, but in many roles through the association. So we are excited to hear not only about her vast experience, but I'm curious about how this presidency has been. So Andrea's work has taken her as a consultant on many teams and leadership roles in her district, as leader in PBIS and MTSS teams. And she's also served as a leader on her state level and as a national a member of the National Association of School Psychologists. She served in NASP leadership roles, including Colorado delegate, NASP practice model committee chair, practice model revision writing team lead, Western delegate representative, president-elect, and she has hoping to shine a light on school psychologists' important roles as champions on behalf of students and for improving school and community systems to enhance all students to thrive. In addition, Andrea loves music, hiking, and dancing, and spending time with her husband and daughters, family, and friends. So welcome, Andrea. We're so glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric. Thank you, Rachel and Rebecca, the whole team. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love your school psychologists as champions for students. And I guess maybe as we start out, what prompted that, or what gave you that theme idea? I think it's a great theme.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love the theme too. I'm so glad I was able to use it. In terms of where it came from, I think I started thinking about just the role that school psychologists play. We all play so many different roles in our schools, and we have a variety of ways that we interact with kids and their families and with one another. So I've been interested in the role of the school psychologist for a long, long time. But I will say that there was one really specific thing that happened probably about, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, that, you know how sometimes you just have these moments that feel sort of electric for some reason? It was actually kind of a simple thing, but as a school psychologist, as a school-based practitioner, I was involved in the mix of things like you all are. I was very involved with my faculty. I was very involved with working with our administration. And just in the course of that, there was a faculty meeting where people's emotions got heightened, and there were some disagreements about how we should do things. And there were some disagreements with one of our administrators. And I don't remember exactly how it went, but all I know was I sort of stood up for some colleagues, and this special ed teacher, friend and colleague, she wrote me a thank you note for that. And she just wrote, thank you for always being a champion for others. And I think she gave me way too much credit, first of all, okay? Because that is like a really nice thing to say to somebody. And I felt very honored and very humbled by it. And I kept it because I remember it helping me to feel like, you know, it's helpful to be there for others. Just like so many people have been there for me in my life. It's the community that we build and the relationships that we build with one another that helps us all to do the work of serving the public, which is really what we do. And that idea of being a champion for kids just really resonated with me. And it, you know, on the bad days, on the discouraging days, at times through the years, it's given me a lift. It's helped me to remember, okay, right now I'm super frustrated, or I'm super discouraged, or something didn't go my way, or this parent got really mad at me, you know, all the things that can discourage us. I just remember that it's the kids that really need us. And that's kind of a really roundabout way of letting you know kind of some of the pieces that came into that. And originally I wanted to have the, when this all actually happened and I became president and we were talking about my theme with the NASP staff, I really wanted it to be something like be a champion or something like that. And I found out that lots of things were copyrighted and you couldn't, you know, words really matter and the way you put them together. So we came up with a season for champions because just thinking of how horrible things have been in so many ways for a number of years. Not just horrible, exciting, but difficult. You know, a lot of opportunities, a lot of wonderful changes, and a lot of people really struggling. A lot of people struggling with burnout, struggling with mental health, struggling with their relationships, struggling with their ability to stay excited for the work. And so just that tough season idea kind of came together, and a season for champions came out of all that. And it's worked out okay, I think.
It's really powerful. And yeah, as you talk about a lot of tough seasons, you know, just reflecting on the past, not only just this past year, but so many years. You know, we were just friends of mine were talking about the class of students graduating from college this year and all the controversies on college campuses and the difficulties with graduation ceremonies. And then, but when you look back at that class of graduating college kids, they largely also didn't get high school graduations because of COVID. And then they, just the political climate through their adolescence and, even before that. And then they were babies that were born right around the time of 9/11. So it really has been seasons and seasons of challenges, not only for people hoping to support young people like us, but for the kids themselves. So it's powerful what you're saying. And it also makes me wonder, in your year as president and in preparation for that, how did you seems like such an awesome responsibility to, share the message and to get people to feel that sense of belonging and togetherness and collaboration, as like we're champions for a cause that we all believe in. How did you tackle that, given life kept going and things kept happening and there were lots of seasons of challenges within the year?
I feel like I've been really well prepared for this role through my work as a school psychologist. I've had a lot of encouraging times, a lot of times where my efforts together with other people really paid off in wonderful ways, right? Whether you're talking about working with a child, working with a group of kids, working with a family, helping them through struggles, whether it's trying to work on making the school a better place for everybody. All of those things have ups and downs, and you have to, I've mentioned this to others, you have to be willing to take some hits too. You have to get used to the fact that it's a journey of challenges. And I think what we do in our jobs more than anything else is problem solving. So since 1990, when I started, my problem solving muscles have been growing. And, during that time too, I became a mother. I've got 2 daughters. So all the problem solving, if you choose to become a parent, so much problem solving, right? I mean, that takes you to your knees. Just that's your core. Problem solving, trying to help your children, trying to be there for your family, all the stuff. So I feel like this role as president, I've been very fortunate that for me, it came at this time, because for me, it was the right time for me to really devote all of my energy to this enterprise. I'm a master multitasker, like all of you are too, but I've had my limits. I was very involved with my kids' sports and activities while they were growing up. So that felt like, how could I ever do any more multitasking than that? Working full time, having a family. But I really wasn't involved in NASP leadership early in my career. I didn't get involved until I was late in my career, just 10 years ago. So in my late 40s, I became NASP delegate, and everything just came at the right time for me, where I had bandwidth. It's almost like not only time bandwidth, but just like bandwidth in my mind, in my soul, in my heart, to do these various types of work. And so when I started in NASP leadership, after having been in state volunteer leadership and working at my district level in a lot of different projects and teams, it just felt very natural. It just felt like, oh, these are my people. These are my people. I've always known they are. Teachers, all educators are my people. I just love public educators, private, any kind of educators. It's just, if you're at a party with people from all walks of life, I'm always going to gravitate towards the educators. I don't know what it is. But when I, started working as a delegate and then on the practice model committee, I just thought this fits. I've been prepared. I'm kind of a slow to warm up person. I really do kind of observe first and work my way into things. And I feel like the evolution of my career has sort of led me here because I've had a lot of good luck, had a lot of great people who have taught me and all of those things. So it hasn't been an easy year, but no year is easy. And there's always going to be challenges. And I think the way I've gone about facing some of the challenges is really focusing on relationships, really focusing on connections, and really just trying to do my part to help everybody feel like they belong. Everyone feels welcome. Everyone has something to contribute. And, when possible, I just try my best to bring out the best in other people. I feel like that's my superpower, is I'm a pretty patient person. I'm not the smartest, most creative, all those things. I'm a pretty regular person, but I'm patient. And I think that that's one of the things I do well. And so that's every new thing that comes up. I just think this is just a different flavor of something I've encountered before. You guys probably know, you're veterans, right? Yeah, that's how I've gone about it so far.
That's great advice. I hear a lot of things in there that I can file away for myself, because I'm also a slow to warm up person and didn't start my career even as a school psychologist until very after children and late in my life. So that resonates with me, like just taking the time that you need, go at your own sort of pace and on your own itinerary, taking on what's meaningful to you in that moment, in that context in your life. I think that's great advice for everyone out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone can do something. It's just, you have to know what's in your bandwidth at the moment. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Eric, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No worries. I think that was a great comment. And, I think the patience as a superpower is so important, right? We deal with crises every day in the schools with, children, families, sometimes our colleagues, and then pressure sometimes from the communities or political, or funding, all kinds of things. And just being patient and focusing on what's important and building those relationships is so crucial. That's such a great word of advice. And I started my career in 1990 as well. So,
hey.
So
we're decade buddies.
We are. And, looking back, it's so incredible how the field has changed.
Yeah.
Just mind blowing how different it is from 1990 and grad school in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's probably good. I started similarly, I jumped into little bits and pieces, my state association, and would do little things and, was a leader in my district. But it wasn't until my kids were probably in middle and high school that I felt like I had some bandwidth to give my time to leadership. So, yeah.
It's funny you say that, Eric. I actually, to be quite honest, as involved as I was with my kids, my husband, my family, I actually got inspired to join the state association board. Two things. One, I was at our state conference, which is in Vail every year, which is a pretty good draw, let me tell you, even if it is like shoulder season. But I was inspired by some school psychologists who were giving a talk about how they had responded to Columbine. Columbine had happened that year, 99. And I remember sitting there just awestruck at the strength of these people, these women who were talking about that experience and how they led through that. And I remember thinking, wow, I would love to hang out with people like that. You know, I feel like I have so much to learn. And at the same time, one of my buddies from grad school was president at the time of the Colorado Society of School Psychologists. And he said, hey, we need a secretary. Would you be secretary? Run for, office. I was like, okay. This is my chance to hang out with people like that, because I knew that a couple of these people were board members. And the other thing, in a selfish way, was as much as I love being a mother, I was going to be away from my children a little bit, like I was going to be going to these professional, like day-long meetings 3 times a year. And when you have children just hanging on your legs 24/7, there's something kind of nice about that idea of having that professional time with adults. And so those 2 things kind of brought me to volunteering to be involved in state leadership. But anyway, that was a very long story, and you didn't even ask me, but there you go. Hope that's okay.
Yes, that was great. I wonder, I think most of us who, we have experience with NASP and some committee work with NASP, and we go to the conventions. But I think most of us don't really have a sense for what the presidency is. And we think of it maybe as, oh, you did the convention. But I know there's so much more than that. And just wonder, as you look back at this year, how has it been? And what kinds of other things were a part of your role?
Yeah. Oh, I'd be happy to talk about it. And I understand, like from the outside looking in, it's kind of like, what does a person do in that role, really? So probably one of the biggest parts of my role as president is being chairperson of our board of directors. So for those people who have been involved in a nonprofit board or even an IEP team, you have various types of leaders. So my responsibility is chairing our board of directors, who makes decisions about our association, including fiduciary decisions, operational decisions. It's sort of the highest decision-making board of the association. And I also support our whole leadership assembly, which is made up, I should know this number, it's close to 75 or 80 people, committee chairs. And you were committee chair, Rebecca, you remember that, yeah. And delegates for all the states. And the leadership assembly sets policy for the association, and the board sort of helps carry it out and provides guidance and consultation and that sort of thing. So working with our board has been wonderful. I have really, really enjoyed it. It's been interesting because, like any other group of people in the last several years, we started off, it might have been before we went live, talking about all of the discord in society, all of the various opinions, all of the, the political stuff and things like that. And so I've actually been super proud to be a part of the board because I feel like our skills and knowledge as psychologists have really helped us to be able to, in a really respectful way and collegial way, work through various opinions and perspectives that come up to any kind of board. I'm very proud of the relationships that we've all built together as we've been working through some really difficult, decisions that are, if you think, and this has been true, I was on the board of directors from 2018 to 2021 as a delegate rep too. It was true then as well. Any field has its controversies, and our field has its controversies, as we're all well aware. And you all are probably even more well aware because you interview everybody and learn so much about all of them all the time. But it's been really great for us to work through a number of decisions that have been difficult to make. And I feel like compared to all of the discord you see in society, the way it seems so few people are willing to talk through things in a civil way, I'm super proud of NASP and school psychologists in general. So part of what I do is help guide our board of directors, help set agendas. We meet 4 times a year, work with people who are asking for the board to act in certain ways or to make certain decisions. Big part of my year has been traveling. As you know, the NASP president gets invited to a lot of state conferences, which is really great. So the bulk of that travel happened in the fall, and that was wonderful. It was really exciting, really fun to meet people from all over the country, find out what kind of work they're doing, what kinds of successes they're having, what kind of challenges they're having. That's been really great. My travel's done now, except for the summer trip for the international association, school psych association. That's going to be great. And let's see, conference or convention. That's definitely a big thing. So planning for the convention, I would say, has been one of the highlights of my career because it started a long time ago. It started over, I guess, probably about a year and a half ago, thinking about things that I wanted to promote, people I wanted to promote. Hi, buddy. And different people's work that I was hoping to really bring to the table. And a lot of that thinking and planning culminated in a trip a year ago, April, to New Orleans, the planning trip with the convention committee, which was amazing. And so that was a real highlight for me because I really had plans of different messages I was hoping to give air and that kind of thing, things that I felt were important for the field. And then the convention itself was super fantastic. I unfortunately got sick and towards the end, which was a bummer, but I felt like I was just so grateful that I was able to go to the general session, which I thought was just amazing. We had a wonderful keynote speaker who spoke from the heart, and it was super special. The whole time he was speaking, I felt like somebody needs to pinch me. I cannot believe how wonderful he is. I cannot believe he's being so generous and trying to help us all so much. So that was really, really terrific. So I wish I hadn't gotten sick. I did get COVID. I didn't know until Saturday I finally tested positive. So that could have been better, but hey, it can always be worse. I could have missed the whole thing. So a lot of what I do is planning for the next event or giving interviews or planning for different speaking kind of requests and things like that, serving on panels and that sort of thing. So hope that fills in some of the blanks.
For sure. I mean, my eldest daughter just got married. So to me, when I hear you say that, it sounds like a nerdy wedding, on steroids.
Exactly. It is. And I'm not an event planner at all. I do not have those skills. Thankfully, we have really brilliant, skilled people to do all that. They put up with I tell Kathy Minke, I am so sorry I have such a messy mind. And it takes me a while to pull all these thoughts together into something coherent. But yes, it is sort of like that, Rebecca. And congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and you too. I'm sorry I missed convention, but I heard wonderful things about it. And it is always the times I've been able to go, just such a feat to provide so much professional development and that sense of belonging. It's like in the air. I loved being surrounded by school psychologists and like-minded professionals and learning alongside others. And it's a great thing every year. So congratulations on
Thank you.
pulling off a wonderful one.
Thank you so much.
Wonder, speaking of like at your how you described part of your role as to like bring the board of directors together to address some of the things that are happening in in the field and in the world that relates to our field, and you all did a lot of kind of position papers and addressing laws and legislation that impacts schools and kids and school psychologists. That there's a lot happening that you had to quickly decide upon and write about, and it seems like fast turnover. It's to me. What was that process like, and did it ever feel like NASP always seems to me as like this little association who could, compared to like APA or even the American School Counselors? They're huge. Did it ever feel kind of scary to put something out there and then wait for the feedback that was bound to come?
Yeah, well, first of all, Rebecca, I can't say enough about our staff. We have 30 full-time staff, okay? And so that involves people very much behind the scenes, working full-time to support everybody, as well as, the program directors, which again, I should probably know this number, but it is about 8 to 10 program directors who are working full-time on our behalf, those of us, everybody in this profession. So, we have an amazing communications director. Kathy Cowan was phenomenal, and I had the great honor of working very closely with her for a number of years on the practice model and on the standards revision and in the board of directors. And I was so scared when she retired because I was like, how can anybody replace her? But we have this wonderful gentleman, Seth Lipkin, who I've had the pleasure of being his first president to work with in his career. And, so there are a lot of really smart, ready, skilled people ready to devote all their attention to something when it comes up. I have the easiest job of it because I have strong consult from all of these people. And then there have been times where I've had to make some tough calls. But again, it's not like this is like I'm a freshman in high school or anything, I feel like I've been prepared by my career, just like you guys. And I've also been careful to ask a lot of questions, and as you do. And I've also told myself, I got to do the best I can, and I'm not going to be perfect. And there's so many people here who are not going to they're not going to let me make any terrible missteps. That has been very comforting. The president is set up for success with a lot of really kind, smart people around them. So it's been a little scary at times, but like I said, we work in situations with a lot of stress. And so it's really not that different, I don't think, personally. That's just my take on it.
I feel like you mentioned asking a lot of questions. I feel like that's so important in anything that we do. I have an intern who's graduating and going out this year. And, I was having a conversation with her that I remember each time I've started in a new district, and I've been in a couple, I create a huge list of questions. How do I find this information? How do you do this? Who do I talk to about this? I mean, just like 5 pages of questions. And then anytime like I'm with somebody who might know the answers, I'm like, let me pull out my list and go down. And I think that that's so important. And I think sometimes people think that, you have to have it all figured out. But I think that half of it is knowing the right questions to ask and having that support that you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And this year, it's been especially important to remember to ask questions. I feel like it's been important to pause lots of times and think, who haven't we heard from? You know, who is going to be impacted by this decision? Whose voice needs to be heard? Who cares the most? Who has the most to lose? Who has the most to gain? All those kinds of things. So we've really tried to be very collaborative and intentional in our outreach at times this year, in gaining different people's insights on various issues that have come up.
Awesome. And then speaking of questions, we have some really good viewer questions that I wanted to hit on. So Nick was wondering about in what ways, if any, do you see the field changing in the next few years? And I feel like I'm always pondering this, like, where are we going to be from, 5 years from now, or, next year even? So do you have any thoughts?
Oh, this is such an amazing question, Nick. I feel like, especially the second half of my career in the schools, what motivated me was helping schools change, right? What gave me that motivation to keep at it was probably because I saw problems in schools and thought, we need to find ways to make these schools work out better for kids and give kids what they need. As a field, I will tell you that the wheels seem to move slowly, but they're moving. One of the goals I had this year, first of all, it was very intimidating following the great Celeste Malone. Okay. And from the moment I met her, I have been completely in awe of her. And one of my goals this year was around helping everyone to feel welcome and have that feeling of belonging in our field. And what could I do to promote that? And so in that sense, I do hope, pray, manifest that our field is becoming more welcoming to marginalized individuals, to minoritized individuals, and that our field is learning more about how to meet the needs of all children, not just white children, not just affluent children, all children. That's one of the biggest, I think that's one of the biggest needs. And thankfully, we are a field full of very compassionate, motivated people. And I have seen, just in my 10 years in NASP leadership, some shifts there, for one thing. For another thing, I have been a passionate proponent of the broad role of school psychologists, really trying to use their consultation, their prevention skills, system skills. And I see more movement there too than I did even 6-7 years ago. I see more graduates coming out of a graduate school really interested in systems work, really interested in developing their skills to be able to wield influence in schools, really bringing families into decision-making more, all of those things. So I've been told that, the practice model is not very sexy, and lots of times people don't want to talk about it. But I tell you, I think I've been passionate about it because I fell accidentally into a role that was getting broader. No, I did not intend for it to happen, but I just was trying to help RTI and MTSS and PBIS to take hold in my schools and my district. And I was like, oh, practice model. Oh yeah, I'm doing a lot more of that stuff just because I'm trying to make my schools work better, because it's really annoying when your schools are not working for kids, right? You see, the kids are the ones who pay the price, and their families, especially families who don't have as much of a voice in the system. So I do feel that the practice model there's more acceptance of the possibility of the practice model being a reality, that it's not completely aspirational, There are aspects, depending on where you're practicing or what the context is, that it can be really challenging to move beyond test in place. But I see that promise coming about a bit more. Those are two areas where I feel like we're making headway. There's still a lot of challenges, but I feel like we are making headway there.
That's great. I know we had another question, and I think it's Dr. Erica Wood, and she asked, I saw that Dr. Clyne attended the Black School Psychologist Network conference. What were your takeaways, and were there any perspectives that you saw that would influence your presidency and leadership?
Oh, Erica, very much so. My takeaways, first of all, I was fangirling all over the place, okay? And I was trying to play it cool. And it was such a privilege to be there. I entered with the idea of listening, witnessing. I was blown away by just the marriage of the heart and the head through a lot of the different presentations that I attended. I was so moved by a couple of sessions in particular, and I'll just name one, was Amber Sessom's session. Great Connecticut school psychologist, right? I think, right? Yes, I didn't get that wrong.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
She's in PA, I think.
Amber? Oh, she is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
bad.
okay.
My
But
bad.
we
why
welcome her.
I'm looking at you like, I think I have that wrong.
We'll
Sorry.
welcome her anytime. She's amazing.
Yeah, I think she might have been Pennsylvania School Psychologist of the Year too. Anyway, I should stop trying to I told you I have a messy mind. I always get the facts wrong. But anyway, she was amazing, and she touched people's hearts so much. And I felt very privileged to witness so many people really experiencing and sharing and sitting with, I think, trauma that they had experienced, traumas they've experienced in our field. And it was, thank you, Erica. Wow. I thought so. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So Amber is just this gifted person who really, I found she spoke to people's hearts so much. It was so inspirational. And I just, there was like this palpable feeling of the attendees just feeling that belonging, feeling that happiness, that joy at being together. And my goal, I talked to Byron a few months ago about going, and I had asked him, I said, I really want to do what's most supportive of you and the Black School Psych Network. I can come, I cannot come. He's like, no, absolutely come. I said, I just want to be the most respectful I can be. I love you guys. I love what you do. And everybody was so welcoming and everything for me to be there. But as takeaways, I just felt how, kind of like I felt at the beginning of the year and following Celeste, how can I still help everybody and people of color to feel welcome when there have been such hurts in the past, and microaggressions and people being left out and all the things, right? What can I do to promote that? And I felt coming out of the summit, how can I help people to feel this way at NASP? How can I help Black school psychologists, all school psychologists, people who are marginalized in the field, people who are minoritized? How can I help them to feel that level of belonging at our regular NASP convention, in all of our meetings, in all of our publications? You know, I felt really honored to be able to be there, and that was the big takeaway. I felt very energized leaving, having witnessed that, having been so warmly welcomed. It was a wonderful experience. It really was. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I think that was a great question, and I'm so glad to hear that. And I think for so many, I'll speak for myself as a white male, you know, we often fill the space. You know, we as white folks, it's sort of white centric, you know.
Yeah.
And we sort of expect women, minoritized people to sort of just come in and listen to our voice, I guess I'll say, you know, center ourselves, right? And so, you know, having an opportunity for other people to share their space, I think is just amazing. And then for those of us that might join that space, it's so important for us to know how to be respectful, how to not center ourselves. Right. And it's a learning experience. If as a white male raised in this society, you know, I haven't had to think about that stuff, you know, until I have to, but it was never necessary, you know. So I think it's so important to really, you ask great questions. Who does this benefit? Who's being left out? Whose voice is not being represented? And I think, you know, for myself and my own demographic, I think we would benefit by listening a lot more. And if we're privileged enough to join some spaces that are not white centric, as they shouldn't be, to ask questions and to be respectful and to learn from those spaces. So I love that you are bringing this perspective back.
Thank you.
And respect those spaces.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you noticed or been made aware of anything hopeful in the field in terms of the shortages in general, and also recruiting and retraining a more diverse workforce in school psychology?
Rebecca, there was one or two words that cut out for me. So right towards the beginning of your sentence, you said something like, have you had any blah, blah, blah?
Just wondering if you've noticed or been aware of any hopeful information regarding shortages in general, but representation more broadly.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Sorry. I wanted to make sure I hit that from the right angle. One of the most exciting things is our graduates in our programs. There's so much higher diversity, racial diversity, and a lot of different dimensions of diversity in our graduate students and in our recent graduates. It's incredible. I mean, it's like that is an area of progress where our field is starting to have more representation, getting closer to the demographics of our kids in this country. And I could not be more excited about it. I really couldn't. So I have to credit the great Dr. Charles Barrett for all of his efforts. As you all know, I know you've had him on the show probably a number of times, at least once, with the Exposure Project. He's an amazing leader. A lot of his efforts at getting out there, speaking to undergrads, speaking to high school students. I've had the pleasure of doing that many times in my career. I've had a couple of I call them the circle of life people, like somebody who heard me in their undergrad and then they decided to go into school psychology. Have you had any of those yet, Eric? And then they become my interns and then got in the field. So you get old enough and you get to have some of those wonderful experiences. But In terms of shortages, the demonstration grants are really exciting. Just shout out to our legislative folks at NASP and the GPR committee have been working for years and years, and that work is paying off now with legislation coming out that is funding these grants to help with school-based mental health personnel. So we have I'd say that is really very tangible progress. And it looks like legislation is happening now that could possibly codify that in the future or keep that funding going on indefinitely. So really excited about that.
Yeah, and just to hit on some of that. So my district, we're a larger district, and every year we have interns and new hires, interviewing. And I really have been so impressed with the quality of people, at least coming to us. And then I've been involved in doing kind of a pilot with our new SLD program and asked for volunteers. And I had a lot of these kind of newer early career school psychs coming on to do that. And I've just been so impressed with how quickly they pick things up and just run with it. And so, that's just gotten me excited for the future of the field, because we have some really, really skilled people. And I do think it's because, people like Dr. Barrett, we're getting word out that school psychology is a thing. And
Right.
So we're attracting more people to it, and really high quality people. So it's exciting.
I love hearing that, Rachel. And I love hearing that you've discovered one of the secrets to longevity in the field, and that is having interns, working with interns and practicum students. I've always seen it as a two-way kind of learning relationship. And I feel like my work was just so enriched by interns and practicum students throughout much of my career. And yeah, so I'm glad you're doing that too.
And I think, we've mentioned a couple interns and people who are graduating. Just to want to shout out to all these folks who are finishing their programs this month and going on in the field, starting their careers. So congrats to our grad students, and look forward to working with you all as colleagues.
Absolutely. It's so exciting. I love seeing it on social media, people, in their caps and gowns and talking about, how excited they are to get out there and do the work. And yeah, I mean, that brings a lot of hope when you see that.
I know we're getting close to our time, and I just really wanted to shout out the convention this year. Over the course of 34 years, I've gone to quite a few NASP conventions in many cities across this country. And my first was Boston in 1989, where I presented my master's thesis as a poster. And so Boston has a special place in my heart. But I think aside from Boston, New Orleans has been my favorite. Just amazing city, so much fun. And to bring school psych and the culture of New Orleans together was really amazing. Great experience for me.
I love hearing that, because I love New Orleans too. I've been there a few times, and I just felt very fortunate that was where my convention would be.
Yeah,
it was magical to me.
It's a magical place. You have to go back now, Eric.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to be able to go, but unfortunately I was not so lucky in that I did get sick. And so, it was a situation where I was just feeling miserable and would test for COVID. I tested like 10 times or something,
Yep.
And always tested negative. So I kind of, masked up and got out there and saw some really good presentations, and then would like crawl back to my hotel room and kind of recharge.
I'm so sorry. I will tell you, Rachel, my daughters were able to come out, which is great. And my one daughter, of course, has some kind of app that shows the number of people coughing in your vicinity. And apparently there was this huge red bubble above New Orleans while we were there, right after Mardi Gras. And I was thinking, Mardi Gras, it's outdoors, we're going to be more safe. I think when you put those gazillion people together, even outside, people are going to get sick. So I'm so sorry that you had that experience, but
yeah, no, it was, I mean, I tried, I was, worried I'm going to be like a super spreader event. So I was like very kind of like staying away from people as much as I could. And then, came home. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't it was just a viral thing and an ear infection. But yeah, so I wish that I could say that it was as magical for me, but it had nothing to do with the actual.
You need a do-over.
Yes.
And Seattle's going to be amazing. I hope you all can make it. Really try to make it Seattle. It's going to. And Peter is such a wonderful person. He's going to be a wonderful president, and I'm so excited that he gets a magical place too. If you haven't been to Seattle, it's wonderful. It really is.
All right. I was looking for last questions, and I think we'll be wrapping up. But Nick has another great one. I think that would be good to talk about. In the spirit of grad school and interns, what's the best gift or good gift that you've received as a supervisor from interns? And maybe on the flip side, what's a good gift to give interns for on the other side too?
Yeah, gifts. Nick, what a generous person you are. I always like gifts that involved like us breaking bread together or something, and that's what I've often given interns, is taking them out for a meal or something like that. I'm a very sentimental gal. Not everybody is, but sentimental gifts I think are the best. Even just a card with heartfelt thanks is something that I've treasured, and I've kept all of them, because you got to keep all those things. So on the discouraging days, you've got that manila folder you open up and you're like, oh yes, I remember them and they were wonderful and all that good stuff.
I love that. A gift of an experience, a shared experience. That's a beautiful sentiment. And Nick, early congratulations on your future graduation. We are rooting you on and so happy as always, to have you here join us for a conversation, and just so excited to hear about how your career takes off after graduation. So I wanted to shout out our friend Nick.
All right. What a great conversation. And I hope that too it inspires people maybe to get involved in NASP leadership and check out all the things that are going on and give some people some good feelings about maybe where we're headed and some of the positive things going on. Rebecca, I think our next date for podcast is, I want to say, the last one of this year until we go on our summer hiatus, but 6/2, I believe you have scheduled a guest for us. Do you want to chat about that real quick?
Yes, I'm very excited to have a returning guest. Dr. Imad Zahir is coming on to talk about a really important concept of systems change geared at mitigating burnout and emotional exhaustion that comes along with being, a dedicated school psychologist. So he's going to talk to us about a paper that he just wrote on what research tells us about how we can do this and how we can't do it as individuals nearly as well or at the effect size that we can do things together for each other and for the field. So I'm so excited to learn about his paper and his research and have this conversation. And that will be on June 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So please mark your calendars and try to join us. That's going to be a lovely way to wrap up the season potentially, because that may be our season finale.
That sounds awesome.
All right. I think that about does it, unless Eric, Rebecca, or anybody has any, I don't see any more questions or comments, but thank you so much, Dr. Clyne, for joining us and sharing all this. And it was a good conversation.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this. I really appreciate you all providing this service for the field. And I'm going to be joining you on the 2nd. I'm going to be listening in. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.